In this video, I'm going to show you how you can play with your data to just look at the results of, for example, the resiliency scale. How does that compare to the Rahi stress scores? Or how do you look at the categories? How many people fall within each of the categories when you compare the stress? The first thing we want to do, though, is we need a little bit more cleanup on this. Let's do some cleanup on the age and also on this category over here with how many years in school do you have. So let's first name these categories. So click on this one, and this is the Rahi, Holmes and Rahi's stress scale, stress scores. This is the Holmes and Rahi scale, where they fall into. Here you have the age, and the last question we asked was years in school. And so this person didn't answer, so you can see there's some highlighted areas here. This person didn't answer, so just put a highlight because it helps you understand when you talk about your results that we had 31 participants. The average age was blah, blah, blah. However, one of the participants didn't actually answer. Here, this one didn't answer their age. And let's see if there's any other. This one here didn't answer either. So we have a few that did not answer certain questions. Here we have people that decided to actually add some more information, which is great, but for when we're doing data, we actually just need numbers. So this person was in school for 10 years. So we'll just clean that up for them. This is their 4th year. Got my associates while still in high school, and 3 years for their bachelor's. So I guess we're going to call that college. It's post high school, so we're going to call that 3 years. 3 years consistently, but on and off for 10 years prior. So they've been 10 years off and on taking school. And this one here just need to make it a 4. So now we have all numbers there. Then the age category. We need to clean that up too, so we can code that. We're going to code that with, so we're going to have, 18 to 25. To 25, we're going to call that equals 1. The 26 to 35, we're going to call that a 2. And 35 plus equals a 3. So if you remember how to find and replace, we have to first highlight the column, and it's not going to want to cooperate, so this is 36. So try that again. Sometimes it doesn't want to go all the way to the bottom before it's highlighted. Okay, so I got those highlighted. Now I want to go up to find and select, and I want to replace. I want to replace 36 plus with a 3. And replace all. Then I want to replace 26 to 35 with a 2. Replace all. And then 18 to 25. Take that and replace it with a 1. Close. Now we have the ages are now so that we have them coded, which makes it easier for data analysis. It's hard to do data analysis with 35 plus and when they're in these little bins like that. But we'll remember these. Let's copy these and put them on our copy, take to our validation sheet, and and biological age. Let's put them in here. Let's transpose there. That way we have our code that we used for those also. Now let's go back to our data sheet. We can get rid of them here. Now we're going to play with the pivot table. Like I said, we're going to see how these different answers compare. So let's highlight this whole section of data. So I highlighted everything from the resiliency total, the average, the Rahi stress scale scores, the scale itself, the age, and years in school. Once that's highlighted, I'm going to click Insert and then click on Pivot Table. And I want to make sure it says New Worksheet. Make sure that one is clicked. Now it's asking you, do you really want this whole range? And I'm going to leave it as is, and I'm going to click OK. And it's going to give me a new worksheet where we're going to play with this data so it's not messing up our data sheet. Call this one, double click and call it Pivot Table. And what this one does is it gives us a pivot table. Here are the categories that we highlighted: years in school, age, the scale for Holmes and Rahi scale, the stress scores, the resiliency average, and the resiliency total. And this just gives you an idea. Put your stuff in here and it will give you what you want. So let's start with the stress scale. So grab that and put it down here in rows. So there's no way of messing this up if you don't want it. There you go. Oops, I didn't want that. What do I do? Just take and throw it back up. So grab the HR scale, put it in rows so we can see. These are the categories you should be familiar with by now. This is low stress, medium stress, high stress, and so forth, and severe stress. Now, how many people actually fall into those categories? You know, we did that count if business. But if I want to know without having to count if, I'm going to take that same HR scale and I'm going to throw it down in values. Because now it's going to tell me how many people fell into the different categories. So these are our bins. So we see here that fairly high, 15 students in the class have fairly high stress. 14 have moderate stress, one has fairly low, and one has is an outlier at 600 plus. So that was interesting, but I wonder, how does the resiliency scale, how does that compare to the bins here? How many people with various resiliency fall into these different categories? Does resiliency have a relationship to that? So let's get rid of this one and let's take the resiliency total, put that into a column. Now I have the resiliency column and I want to then find how many people fell into these categories. So these numbers, you're going, what are those? These are the scores. So go back to our data. These are the resiliency scores. On the resiliency scale, I'm going to go back here and we're going to see how we come up with these answers. So on the resiliency scale, you have 25 questions. And you remember that the questions are on a scale of 1 to 7, 1 being strongly disagree, and 7 being strongly agree. So we'll take the 25 questions. I'm going to just show it here. You don't have to type those out if you don't want to. But let's do equals 25 So let's say somebody answered 7 strongly disagree or strongly agree on all. So 25 times 7 enters. So somebody who answered strongly agree to all the questions on the resiliency scale would have a score of 175. So nobody had a score of 175 in our category, but we had somebody who strongly agreed at 172. It means that they have a very high resiliency score. And so we can then find out if they have a high resiliency score, how does that compare to the category of stress they fall into? Let's do 1 4 equals 25 times 6. Enter. So here, let me do the 7 here so you guys can see. We'll type this strongly agree. And then we have equals 25 times 5. Enter. Put the 5 in there. So 25 times 5. We have 125. So we still have more categories to go. So let's do equals 25 times 4, which is 100. So nobody scored under 100. So most of you scored strongly agree. Let's go back and see what the validation said on that one. Strongly disagree is a 1. So strongly agree, somewhat agree. Let me copy those because I'm not going to remember that by the time I go to another sheet. So strongly agree, somewhat, and neither disagree, agree, nor disagree. That gives us an idea of what numbers we're looking at. So 100, if anybody scored 100, they neither disagree nor agree. So somebody was, some of these guys had a little bit more, I don't care. But most students had somewhat agree all the way to strongly agree. Now let's find out how many students end up in the different bins for this one here. So I'm going to go back to my scale. I'm going to put it back in the values. I want the values of this total. How many of these totals fall into these different categories on the HR scale? So for the first one, you can see we have somebody with fairly high resilience, one person with fairly high resilience that has decent, very low stress. Most of the students kind of fell in these two categories. You can see some people had very low, 2 people had fairly low resilience. And some people had very strong or very high resilience, but they still had moderate stress. The person who ended up with super high stress has fairly high resiliency scores, which the resiliency scores actually counterbalance the resiliency counterbalances the stress. So even though the one who had 800 high stress also has high resilience. So we can also see here that most of the people with high stress, they end up with fairly high resiliency scores. We do have a few down here that had low resilience and high stress. But that's kind of things that you can play with the different scales. Now if we let's get rid of this one and get rid of that one, get those back. Now, how did they work with age? Let's try the age. Age in the columns, and remember there's our coding that we just did. And now let's drag the HR scale back down to the values. Now we can find out who ends. Yep, see there's our blank that we had that we highlighted. One person didn't answer their age. So we have somebody who's young, one person that is in the age range of 18 to 25 that has absolutely very low stress. We have 2 people in that range that have fairly high stress. And we have 5 people in the age range of 18 to 25 that have fairly significant stress. And 9 people are 36 and above ended up in the moderate. 7 36 and above ended up in the fairly high stress levels. So just a way of playing with numbers and trying to understand how they fit together. Now you could do the school too. Let's get rid of the count the values of the age and get rid of the age, and let's put the school down. Actually, I could have left that one down there in the values. And here you have the years of school. Somebody's been in school for 25 years. Let me go back and look at my data. Oh, yep, somebody has been in school for 25 years. Congratulations. That's pretty impressive that they haven't given up. Now you can look at how that fares with their stress levels. So the 25, been in school for 25 years, and they have moderate stress. So these are the years. This one has been in school for 3 years. They have fairly high stress. And now we can see more about our person who has 800 and above. They've been in school for 6 years. I wonder if we can add the age on here too. So we can look at the same person. Look at age in columns. It's just going to make it a mess. So I won't do that, but it was interesting to see that this one here has high stress, been in school for 6 years. So they've been working hard at getting their degree, but it just gives you an idea of what you can do with your data. Anyway, that's all I have. It's just an interesting way of starting to analyze your data and seeing how your different data points or the data actually, how they relate to each other.